Welcome to what's going to be a quick fire Week in Sports Cars podcast, part of the Marshall Pruett podcast, with myself, Graham Goodwin, and friend and colleague Stephen Kilbey. As always, backed by the Justice Brothers and TorontoMotorsports.com. We're going to get into it because we're running a deadline for other things going on today, Stephen. Lots to cover, and we're going to do it in quick fire fashion. ELMS last weekend at Portimao.
Yeah, superb event. Champions crowned in the final 4-hour race of the season, and then a bundle of testing for 4 days for Le Mans Cup and ELMS teams. I mean, for me, just another really interesting week in Portugal. Lots of storylines to track. Let's start with the race, though, Graham. The ELMS race held on the Saturday. VDS Panis Racing winning the championship in style, with a race win as well for Esteban Masson, Ollie Gray and Charles Malaysia, who, let's be honest, emerged as the best all-round package in a season full of really intriguing young lineups.
Yeah, should have won Le Mans in LMP2, failure right at the end, gutting for the whole team. Ollie Gray at the win at the time. He, for me, standout newcomer of the year, emerging talent of the year, because the second year with LMP2, but the three of them together, pretty much unbeatable. Delighted to hear from Olivier Panis. He would love to have kept that crew together, but with Ollie Gray upgraded to gold, that won't happen. So Ollie, I think, will be racing elsewhere next season. But he, and I'm sure you're going to mention Mathis Chabert as well, from the EDEX Sport trajectory program for Genesis Magma Racing. For me, two standout talents of the year.
Yeah. It was an entry list that, when you looked at the start of the season, didn't have the star power that we had last year, which was just full of ex-world champions and Formula One drivers and Le Mans winners. This one was a lot younger as a whole in LMP2 and in LMP2 Pro-Am for that matter. But it didn't produce any worse racing. In fact, it just, by the end of the season, we had so many people like Jalbert, like Ollie Gray, making a name for themselves. Danny Juncker in a prototype. He will be joining Mathis Jalbert at Genesis Magma Racing in the Hypercar program, and deservedly so. It was really intriguing. It was almost a season of two halves, with the EDEC car, backed by Genesis, cleaning up at the start of the season, and a couple of slip-ups. So we had obviously the issue at Spa, which ultimately really cost them the championship here. And all the while, VDS Panis just consistently, metronomically ran through the second half of the year, winning races, and doing so really convincingly. And for me, it was just awesome to see them at Portimao in that final race cap it off with just a pretty dominant all-round performance for 4 hours.
Second, and also, as well as VDS Panis Racing, excuse me, securing an automatic invitation to Le Mans into Europe.
Yep.
Another very convincing performance from them. They too, talking about their 43 crew repeating and coming back, something we've not been used to seeing in the European Le Mans series in recent years. Stability of crew from year to year. Moving across to LMP2 Pro-Am. Champions AO by TF, so that's back-to-back championship wins, LMP2 last year, LMP2 Pro-Am this year. And that came the way of PJ Hyatt. It's been what a massive improvement we've seen from PJ. Dane Cameron and Louis Delatraz, who secured, is that his fourth title in 5 years? With three different teams.
Yeah, amazing. Just a really, really impressive season from AO by TF and Spike the Dragon. And it's 2 years in a row that AO by TF have won a championship. And at the start of the year, when Dane Cameron was coming on board, and you looked at the lineup, and at that point, PJ hadn't won a race in anywhere ever. Which now feels ridiculous
like
when you look at how many races he's won since. But they waited, they came close. Paul Ricard, we thought they took pole for the first time, looked like they were going to win that race. Didn't happen for them, finished second. And in the end, his first race win came at Le Mans. And since that race, that effort, and PJ in particular, has just been rock solid, winning multiple races in IMSA, championship there, and winning the LMP2 Pro-Am title. And it was hotly contested in LMP2 Pro-Am this year. And Algarve Pro Racing came very close. Always a title contender there from Stu and Sam Cox.
Yeah,
but
bit of an error in traffic.
Cost them dearly.
Cost them the championship. They came in pretty dominant position and only needed a decent point scoring result, and it didn't come their way. The win in Portimao for TDS Racing, which meant that TDS Racing, because they're the service provider for VDS Panis, TDS won both LMP2 classes. That's some result for them. But the storyline for me that I think has captured a lot of people's attention from LMP2 Pro-Am came from the post-race conversation I had with PJ Hyatt. You're right, Michelin Endurance Cup, or rather the Aiken Award, Truman Award, for PJ, which means he's already got an automatic invitation to Le Mans. He's now got 2. And he was making it clear that AO Racing want to engage with the ACO to see whether or not they'll allow them to switch one of their entries for an LMP2 car, which is what they've got, 2 for LMP2 cars, to Spike and put that car into LMGT3 to race at Le Mans together for the first time. Because we've had both of them, but not in the same year. And I think that's a great idea. I think, what you're always looking for as the promoter of that great race are storylines. And getting a storyline of that strength with that level of fan support behind it that is not about hypercar is a golden opportunity.
Yeah, it just so much fan engagement. It just adds another layer of excitement to an already superb event, doesn't it? When AO Racing come along with their very fan-focused effort. So yeah, no, congratulations to them. It was awesome to watch this season. And then should we go to LMGT3 where it was TF?
We should say first and foremost, LMP3 was sorted last time out, but Celex Motorsport brought a celebratory livery with that car. That trio have been dominant.
And they celebrated their title win by winning again.
They did indeed. But LMGT3 was wide open. Was it 7, 8 cars in the offing for that?
Yeah, it was a 7-car showdown, and in typical ELMS fashion, you didn't really have a full read on where it was going to go until we got into closing stages of the race. As it turned out, the TF Sport 82 Corvette, which did look strong all weekend, won the race. Hiroshi Koizumi, Rui Andrade and Charlie Eastwood, from pole. And must be said, Hiroshi Koizumi, late end of the season, looks like a different prospect. He's someone who, has been steadily improving, but now looks like one of the better bronzes in a GT3 car, and just was massively rewarded for his efforts. And alongside him, 2 other standout drivers in this field in the end. Charlie Eastwood at this point is just one of the best GT drivers on the planet. I thought he was superb late in the race when Wayne Boyd in the United Autosports McLaren was really ridiculously rapid. Could have got past, and that would have set up a really intriguing scenario where
season, I thought, from him. Threads of the needle on the start finish. The start finish went from 4th to 2nd in one move. But
that was where the drama was, because at the end of the race you had Wayne Boyd trying to get past Charlie Eastwood, didn't quite make it. You kind of felt if the race had been a few laps longer, you might have seen a switch there. But had the United car taken first, the championship all of a sudden would have looked like it would hang in the balance, because behind there was a train of Ferraris, and for the 50 Richard Mille, of course, a Ferrari to win the championship, all it would have taken was a bit of pit wall tactics and allowing the 50 to climb up the order a bit, and all of a sudden we're talking about the Richard Mille car winning the title.
Worth saying something about that, because that would have given... we talked about PJ Hyatt having back-to-back titles within a week. It could have been the same for Lino Wadu in that 50 car. It wasn't. They went off strategy in one of the early interruptions. That was playing to them. Had we had a late race interruption, it could have been them. It could have been them. So they didn't make it, but the podium was completed by the Iron Dames. And that might be, and we'll come up to this in a few moments, it might just be, it's the last time for a while at least that we see the Iron Dames in the ELMS paddock. All sorts of potential moves been going on. It's a story we could have written 3 or 4 times. We've chosen to write it this week for DSC and for Racer as to where we think Iron Dames and Iron Lynx are moving forward.
We'll talk about that properly in a moment.
Yeah.
Before we do, there is something to be said about what this championship means for Corvette. It's the first first true privateer championship for the Z06 GT3R, first championship for Chevrolet in the ELMS, and it comes on at a time when it's all building really nicely at Corvette with their customer program, which, lest we forget, is only really in the second year with Corvette Racing. They've had GTD Pro success with Pratt Miller. They've now got TF winning in the LMS, has a chance to win the LMGT3 Championship in Bahrain for the WEC. We've had news that Corvette's going to Bathurst for the first time with that car.
4 cars going to the Asian Le Mans Series.
4 cars going to the Asian Le Mans Series, and hopefully a bigger. We're hearing from Tom Ferrier, potentially a bigger effort in the ELMS for the Corvette next year as well.
Not the only ones looking for an uptick in terms of the number of cars they bring next season. The ELMS entries are always ridiculously tight. But here's the other thing: with that championship win, that means already we've got 4 Corvettes potentially locked in for Le Mans next year. That's a total for Corvette that we've not seen since we had the 2 factory cars in GT Pro, and for 2 years, 2 C6Rs for Labra in GTEM, and that's over a decade ago. And we've still got the potential for another car maybe to make it with success in Asia, which would be a completely remarkable sight for, if they allow all 4 in, or indeed if TF do push the button on that 3rd car. And then, as I say, the potential for either another TF entry or a JMR entry, and it's JMR that are taking a car to Bathurst.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive what the ground that Corvette Racing and this custom program have been able to make in such a short space of time, because the results, the wins are coming, the titles are coming, the car's showing speed, it's reliable. They haven't got tons of customers, and their strategy is more to pick and choose specific customers in specific places and make sure you haven't got loads of customers fighting against each other. They've chosen very well with their tight-knit customer base, which is steadily growing. But it shows you don't need 30 cars racing around the world to get these massive race results.
The impressive thing about the customer base is that it's not a rapidly expanding customer base, but it's a customer base that's showing more ambition and expanding their programs. So JMR, for instance, been a while since we've seen with the Asian Le Mans Series. They're taking the car to Bathurst, as you say. We've got TF Sport now with 5 cars, I think they have on strength, 4 active cars and a spare. And they're looking to double up what they're doing in the LMS alongside what they're doing in the WEC. Who knows what might come next for Tom Ferrier and his boys and girls. But you're right, we're seeing more of those cars, but they're from well-established teams experienced with the chassis.
Yeah, no. Speaking to Jessica Dane after the title win, you could just hear it in her voice just how proud she was, and quite rightly so. This is an effort that's going places, and it's a package that's going places, and who knows what we'll see from Corvette Racing around the world in 2026. That's the race, and as we mentioned, invitations handed out to Le Mans. There's the only ones that remain now are Asia Le Mans Series of LMP2 and GT winners in Asia Le Mans over the winter get the final 2 bites at the cherry for Le Mans in June. Then we had the rookie test for ELMS and Le Mans Cup, followed by some days of private testing, which was a bit of just analysis from a lot of teams on particular drivers trying out specific cars. We had some Goodyear tyre testing going on. Always really fascinating walking up and down that pit lane, Graham, on those days when you've got cars coming in and out, and it was rammed, wasn't it? We had better part of 30 cars on track for the 2 days that we were there. What stood out to you? You want to go for a couple of places?
Well, there's 2 or 3 things. There's some lovely storylines. I'll come to those in a moment. But what we saw was a number of drivers hopping into cars we've not seen them in before. Takeshi Kimura in Aston Martin, for starters. An awful lot of potential gold and silver talent queuing up at Kessel Racing for instance, the GT side of things. We had Goodyear tyre testing going on with Monty there with a Porsche, TF with the title-winning Corvette.
And that's the 2027 spec tyre. This is their first track testing. They've done the simulation work. So now the track testing begins, and it won't just be Corvette and Porsche involved, but this is the first preliminary stage of that. But beyond just developing the 2027 spec tyres, Goodyear kind of linked in. We had some news during the ELMS weekend about sporting regulations and technical regulations for WC next year. It looks like Goodyear's going to have to reassess and refocus its effort in LMGT3. Hard compound kind of no longer needed because we've got more tyres in the allocation for the WC teams everywhere outside of Le Mans.
I know you've got a reasonably large story in the works for next week about the genesis of that regulation. We'll get to that in due course, but that to me makes it a fundamentally different formula. It effectively goes into
it's a single stint formula.
Yeah, it's six sprints within the 6 hours.
Yeah,
which is going to be much more fun for some of the drivers and much more challenging for the prototypes.
Yeah, and difficult in terms of strategy. There aren't going to be as many ways to gamble, make up ground if you don't have the outright pace. In my mind, a bit of a shame. I feel like this is going down the kind of SRO route, which for me doesn't produce as entertaining racing. Certainly not as interesting when you dig into the strategies in play. But Goodyear, no less invested in this, and it shows by the fact that they're already pushing for the next gen tyres. And it feels like this current set of Eagles, the mediums in particular, are still pretty new. We had that. We had a few other really interesting drivers up and down the pit lane that we'd seen for the first time, including Porsche Carrera Cup GB champion Andrew Rackstraw, the South African driver with high class racing, trying out LMP3. He seemed like a really nice kid, and he's clearly got ambition to move out of single make into sports cars. He can see his future there. He's quick, and he seems to be pretty mature for his age. I was pretty impressed with him. APR doing a lot of.
I don't know how many drivers they had, but
Asia Le Mans Series prep for APR, but also some seat time for the likes of Enzo Trilli, Bryson Morris, who American listeners will know from Pilot Challenge with the Hertz TCR program. Griffin Peebles, who is red hot in a P3 car, looking forward to seeing
as well with United.
Yes, he produced some good times. Every time he stepped in the back of the APR garage, it was somebody different climbing in and out.
Running 3 cars, and there was a hint that I'm not going to put out there as to what their plans are next year. Watch this space for a new alliance for Argyle Pro Racing, who has always have been impressive in terms of their willingness to throw the dice on strategy. But 3 cars, multiple drivers for each of them. And you're right, it was like, every time we walked in there, there's another 3 guys you haven't seen before. Other storylines, the Al-Ghabaisi family, Khaled back in a P3 car in this instance with both of his daughters, who look set to move up to Michelin Le Mans Cup after being pretty impressive in the Ligier European Series this year. Another family outing at Proton, with Lenny Reed joining his brother Jonas and dad not in the car, but Christian. There was another family that I've completely forgotten. I know there was a third. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
It was the Trullis.
The Trullis were there.
And
Gilles Heriot, by the way, Francois Heriot's younger brother, was in action at Ultimates. All sorts of stuff going on. But for me, one of the nicest storylines, and if you've not caught up with the story in his own words on DSC, please do, was the oldest guy ever to climb aboard, as far as we know, an LMP2 car.
You didn't get in, did you, Graham?
Stop it now. I didn't say fattest, I said oldest. But Don Bastian, at 79 years young, he'll be 80 years old on the 25th of November, putting in, I think there's 4 different stints in a Proton P2 car through the rookie test day. And as always, the oldest starter and oldest finisher at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Is he going to look towards maybe a P2 program? We're going to give him a bit of space, let him think about that. But, just still an absolute delight.
So moving from one rookie test to another, we've had some WEC rookie test news. Peugeot announcing 3 drivers. So before Peugeot came out, we had WEC nominating Ollie Gray and Tom Fleming for the championship winning cars. Now we've got 3 names at Peugeot, and that is Alex Quinn, who's been superb this year with Argyle Pro Racing in their LMP2 Pro-Am effort. We've had Nick Cassidy, who will be taking on a full-time role with the team next year, so using the rookie test as part of his preparations. And Matthias Besch, which was a bit of a sort of surprising name. I haven't seen him in a top-class car for a while, Graham. Last seen with Rebellion Racing at end of LMP1 days.
I do wonder whether or not Matthias might be in something of a development role, because he's been around a long time. He is, to my mind, the epitome of a hard-charging, aggressive prototype driver. Rebellion for years, with success. His final year saw that win overall at Silverstone in the WEC, when the two Totus were disqualified. But and then and again won in LMP2 Pro-Am last Saturday in the LMS finale. So delighted with all three of them, but must say, for me, a standout talent who's been quietly coming on. We said a lot about Ollie Gray. Alex Quinn not that far behind him in terms of my reckoning.
No,
I think the pair of
Alex
those
Quinn's been unbelievable.
Properly exciting talents.
Yeah. I mean, the particular drives this year, and I'm thinking back to like the LMS race at Silverstone, where Alex Quinn up against some superb driving talent for the time that he was put in that car, just looked mesmeric. I mean, he's really coming on.
Start the race for a variety of the 20 car from Algarve Pro was forced to start at the back of LMP2 Pro with Alex aboard.
Yeah, he had half the field at the exit of turn 1.
I think he was the lead of the class within a lap.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then it was him against Théo Pourchaire in the other Algarve Pro car, the Pro car. And they were nose to tail for lap after lap, and I think Quinn got him. Yeah,
Quinn was all over, I'm pretty sure, diced with Théo during this race at Silverstone as well, unless we forget Porsche will be racing with Peugeot next year. So he's definitely got a future. Someone else who's got a future in prototype racing, it seems, is Lauren Heinrich, who will be getting his big shot in hypercar in Bahrain. He'll be in the 5 car. Porsche are going back to 3 drivers in each car, obviously, for the longer race in the Middle East to cap off the season, and the factory program for that matter. But really, really pleased to see Lauren Heinrich given a chance. I mean, he's just been a revelation, hasn't he, for Porsche GT racing, particularly in IMSA and GTD Pro. He's just, what a talent they've uncovered there, and fascinated to see how quickly he can get up to speed with the 963 in the 5 car, and what is going to be a massive weekend for Porsche at Bahrain for so many reasons. They've got 2 championships to fight for. They've got obviously the fallout that's still ongoing of them pulling out as a factory from hypercar next year and transitioning to a motorsport program that looks a little bit scaled down with just IMSA GTP and Formula E. But nevertheless, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on with this shot. He tested just before Petit Le Mans, didn't he? So has a little bit of experience to draw from, but very different experience it's going to be for him when he's going in anger in the 963.
Two storylines that come out of that. It's not just Lauren Heinrich coming in, it's Michael Christensen stepping out. I just want to say a quick word there, because I think that might be the last time we see Michael in a Porsche prototype at the very least, and maybe in a Porsche. And if that's the case, that will be a reason for real sadness. One of the nicest guys, super rapid guy, Michael Christensen, fantastically dry sense of humour, and he's going to be missed if that's the last time we see him for a while in the WEC paddock. But we can't avoid the elephant in the room, which is what next for Porsche. Now, I'm going to try and sum it up as quickly as we can in this quickfire show. We know more than we can say, and we know more than we're prepared at the moment to write. I'll say this. I am reasonably confident that there is the potential for a deliverable plan that sees Porsche retain a hypercar presence in the FI World Endurance Championship. It may not be entirely the route that people are expecting, okay, that it might be. But for a variety of reasons, not least of which, of course, we know our business rivals listen to this podcast, and we're not going to give them any clues. But the reality here is we've had a lot of conversations at a pretty high level about this, and there's a reasonable amount of confidence that we've not seen the end of Porsche on the hypercar entry list. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, it ultimately, there's a bottom line here, and there is a money problem. There are gaps that need
It comes
to be
down
filled.
to Porsche's willingness to provide some financial support and certainly material support. Without that, if there's no willingness to do that, then the program is done. And what that means, by the way, is the program for Porsche in hypercar in the WEC for the time being is done, because there'll be no opportunity for Proton to race, because you can't enter one car. And there'll be no opportunity for the IMSA Championship winning car to come to Le Mans, which is the bigger deal if your name begins with R and ends in Ojapensky. That appears to have been a storyline where perhaps the lines of communication about the effects of the decision were not perfect.
No, to put it mildly. More news to cover in WC, Graham. I mentioned it a little bit briefly about regulations for next year.
Yeah.
The tyres for LMGT3, that regulation about the allocation is not the only thing that's changed. There's some other key pointers that came through in the technical and sporting regs. Looking specifically at hypercar, we had the news that there's potential for success handicap to be used like it is in MGT3 next year, which is an interesting development in the ongoing saga of how do you balance the hypercar class.
It's interesting, isn't it? Now, I mean, where do we go with this? I'll fire away. We had a note this morning from FIA basically saying it's an option. It's not definitely going to happen. It's an option.
The regulation does say May.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all about the direction they decide to take in terms of balance performance. It's predictably prompted yet another massively negative response from, to be blunt, a fair amount of the usual suspects. If you spend your evenings and weekends hacking away at negativity to do with a formula, don't be surprised if people turn around and say, well, look at some options to change it. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's right that they look at the route to change. My view is, I don't think it needs a success ballast. I think we need a simpler, a better explained, a better policed BOP system is what we're actually looking for. I think success ballast to me sort of feels like a bridge too far. But I understand why they've put it out there. Yeah.
It's another tool in the box. They're going to have to decide pretty sharpish if they're going to deploy this or not. And I imagine that, well, they'll make the decision around the time of the prologue in Qatar. And I'd actually had a conversation with a couple of senior representatives from manufacturers a couple of months back, talking about essentially success handicap replacing BOP at some point down the line, something similar to that, where you got rid of the BOP system, as it
closer to the kind of 2019, 2020 system.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Part of the instead of BOP, you'd have success ballast, and you'd freeze the cars that were the best and allow manufacturers that were at the bottom of the standings to catch up with Evos season to season. And that's not the only mention of Evos we've got on this show, because we've got the rule change or addition to the rule set here that going forward, manufacturers that have cars that aren't performing up to standards will be given the chance to apply for additional evolutions on Evo Jokers to make to their cars outside of the current allotment, because everyone's restricted to how many updates they can bring.
Which gives them the opportunity to determine, is BOP going to be enough? Or do we want to go back and think about our numbers? Now, my concern is development cost with that proposal. But again, what you're seeing here, pretty much everything you're reading in those draft regulations is coming out of what we've described on this show previously as a pretty business-like and cordial set of discussions between the manufacturers and the rule makers.
Yeah, everyone's in the room, everyone's engaging, and it all sounds pretty sensible and positive for my mind in the way that they're approaching this. So we've got the change to GT3 tyres. We've got the potential for manufacturers to apply for additional Evo Jokers beyond their allocated amount for the rule makers to decide if they can be granted them to improve their cars. We've got that change about the other one to discuss going forward is about the use of ERS systems.
Got to have one.
So from now on,
newly
homologated cars will have to have
energy recovery system.
Yeah, an energy recovery system, which essentially prevents somebody from bringing something like the Valkyrie, which is a non-hybrid, going forward. That, for me, produced way more discourse than the Success Handicap stuff. But I mean, we're still getting messages and comments and a couple of emails even about people being outraged by the fact that we're going into a period of time where you won't be able to bring a non-hybrid prototype to the top class.
Can I ask?
Some people haven't read it because they believe that the Valkyrie's gone,
Which it
isn't. And in fact, quite the opposite. I've got it on very, very good authority that the Valkyrie is going nowhere and for a significant period of time. This is a multi-year commitment and there is a roadmap.
Well, have you seen the results?
No, but this isn't a program that's suddenly going to go, oh, okay, then we're off.
Here's the question to the outraged. Really simple question. Which specific car that's being planned right now will this affect?
There isn't one. So there's that. But there's also the element to this discussion about the ERS systems, which is there's this debate and just general outrage and negativity about BOP and how the class is balanced and how unfair it is, and this manufacturer's getting the wrong end of the stick, and this one's getting helped by the rule makers, and then you come into a situation where they make these changes, which is clearly with a wider view of we're moving towards a single platform at the end of the decade. It's I'm pretty certain now that's exactly what we're going to do. It's going to be something that resembles MDH but a bit more open, to prevent having the rule makers who have a ludicrous challenge on their hands to balance non-hybrid and hybridized cars, four-wheel and two-wheel drive hybridized prototypes running under different rule sets, and balance them all together. It's a ludicrously difficult task to do. This is a way forward that's going to make it easier to streamline that process. Plus the fact that the BOP is going to become, it's going to evolve again and become simpler next year. To me, this is directly addressing the concerns that people have with the way that the formula is governed, the integrity of the formula, and its sustainability going forward. And people are still angry about that.
But I think I'm prepared to make this statement right now. If you're angry about all of the above, maybe this isn't for you. Okay? Maybe there's something else that you prefer to watch rather than this. Because I'm telling you right now, look, do I agree with all of the criticism of BOP this year? I really don't. I agree with some of it. I think it could have been better explained. I've got some concerns about the way things panned out in the first 2 or 3 races this season, and the fact that we didn't get the close racing we hoped we would get. But the apparent blindness of so many people to everything beyond BOP, including operational effectiveness, the efficiency of the car, the ability or otherwise for teams to make some cardinal errors out there in the race, to be blind to all that, the number of times I've heard the phrase, they didn't win despite the fact they had a perfect race. Sorry, rubbish. Okay? Porsche is the classic one at Le Mans this year. They did not have the perfect race. They started from the back and they made a strategic blunder in the middle of the night that cost them a minute, and they lost by a handful of seconds. Sorry, that's not the perfect race. Okay, that car was capable of winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and they didn't. Okay, ultimately, you've got to go head to head with the best. You've got to go head to head in terms of the performance, the efficiency, the ability or otherwise to stay out of the pits or to make errors. And ultimately, I'll tell you right now, I don't believe there's that many people on this planet more passionate about this sport than maybe I am and maybe you are. And yeah, there's been 2 or 3 races this year where I've kind of thought, could have been better. But I've been royally entertained at all the rest.
It's a different planet to where we were 4 or 5 years ago, isn't it, in terms of the amount of entertainment it's doling out. But what I would say is that what really frustrates me, what frustrates me the most about this are the comments that are like, well, Porsche's on the way out, they're making these changes, they're setting the whole series on fire, this is all, that everyone's going to be queuing up, it's on its knees, this is the beginning of the end. The sky is really not falling here.
Number one, Other teams will leave in a year or 2 or 3. And others we know are coming in. And there are more, as we've said repeatedly on this show, beyond that. Okay? Here's the thing. We're going to have 10 factory teams. 10 factory teams, okay?
It's more than basically all of World Motorsport combined.
It's more than 3 times what we had for the last occasion on which people described it as a really golden era. More than 3 times. Now that in itself brings a challenge to rule makers to balance as best they possibly can and to keep those entities as happy as they can. But the number of different ways that people find to snipe, it's...
And ultimately, all you need to know when it boils down to it is the factories that are crying foul the most quietly behind the scenes or is most frustrated, the likes of a Toyota. At times it's been Porsche. We've had Alpine concerned about their ability to win races with the BOP system. Well, Toyota's bringing updates to its cars, so clearly it believes the cars...
It pretty much looks like a new car.
Yeah, well, they clearly believe the car's got more in it via updates. And all the manufacturers, bar one, want BOP to continue. So there's not this massive exodus in the championship coming because everyone's so disgruntled about BOP. They got given the option to get rid of it. They almost categorically said, we want to keep it. Yeah. And the one manufacturer that didn't is still happy with BOP anyway. They were just given the choice. And if they were given the choice, they would rather it not be there. But they're not going to go anywhere.
No, I mean...
the fact that we're going to keep BOP...
My prediction for you right now is 2027, I think we will see those 10 manufacturers. It may be that 2028 we might see 9. Or, my God, it might be a complete meltdown and it might be 8. Okay? The thing that's going to affect this championship in this era, right now, is not going to be the presence or otherwise of balanced performance. It's not going to be the presence or otherwise of any of those other draft rules that we've actually seen in place. It's going to be geopolitics and the economy. Okay? And that's what's affected Porsche. Porsche played the game incorrectly and put too many chips down on the EV part of the roulette wheel. That's what's happened here. They've got further bad news to come in terms of problems that have been stored up for them by the way in which they've been forced to prepare for the trade war that's been initiated by the current US administration. That's still coming to bite them. There's more damage to come from that in terms of price guarantees given, in terms of the cost of tariffs that's now on the table. Am I pleased with the decision of Porsche? No. Am I pleased with the way they made that decision and communicated that decision? Trust me, they know, fundamentally no, I'm not. But I understand why they've made that decision, and it's got absolutely nothing to do... I mean, here's the thing. Remarkably, we're moving towards a solution which was initially put out there publicly by Porsche.
Yeah. Just at the point where they're...
Single platform.
They're just at the point where they're walking away.
So, ultimately, I don't expect there to be massive dramas anywhere. I think people are going to be looking for efficiency savings. We're already seeing that across the board in all sorts of ways. I think we're looking at a championship that is expanding in terms of numbers gradually. We are looking, as far as we're concerned, to a championship that will add a race, maybe one more in a couple of years' time. So we'll see sensible expansion of the FIWC. I think we've got a governing body that is very aware of the economic balancing act that's got to be made here. Certain things are significantly more expensive than we ever imagined they would be when these rule sets were being put together. COVID has seen to that. The current, global political outlook has seen to that, and the cost of things like logistics have seen to that. But we are dealing with people able to have conversation and debate, and maybe this is the final lesson. Maybe we're in a situation where right now our sport, and this particular part of the sport, is able to do something that all too often across the world in all the big subjects that need to be discussed politically with a small and a large p, we're not discussing politically, we're arguing. We're not arguing in this sport at the moment, we're discussing. That is a lesson for everybody offering some very loud opinions on a whole range of subjects that, frankly, are not adding anything to the debate.
Few more bits to tie up on WC before we move on to a couple of other miscellaneous topics here. Garage 59, big news there. So McLaren's changing service provider for its LMGT3 WC effort next year. It won't be United Autosports. They're going to shift their primary focus to the LMDH program. So the service partner or the partner racing team is going to be Garage 59, and there's plenty we can say about that, Graham. This is a team that has real pedigree, real success,
wanted to do in the first place.
Wanted to do in the first place. Is a title-winning team run by really, really sensible people. They're going to expand. They've got a new
facility, which is significantly bigger than the facility before. I was chatting to Andrew Coccotti, team principal there, only yesterday. Real excitement about that, talking about the opportunities and challenges. I think you're going to see that effort look quite different from what you've seen from United Autosports. The McLaren has looked increasingly competitive moving forward, and it's got an ownership group with Andrew, with Alex West, with Chris Goodwin, who are pretty motivated to make a bit of a splash here.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a real good run at this. I have a lot of confidence that they'll be able to get some big results from McLaren while they build up to the car.
Excuse me.
Last couple of other bits. Antonio Felix da Costa going to Alpine, another piece in the jigsaw for the silly season. And of course, there's plenty more news to come, I think, with the likes of more Porsche drivers on the marketplace. But Felix da Costa, another ex-Porsche driver, going to be racing the A424 next year. That's an exciting move. I'm excited to see him back.
I think what we're seeing is the pieces are beginning to slot into place, but it's also setting up, I think, what's going to be a kind of liquid driver marketplace for the next 2 or 3 seasons here. There are some decisions that have been made. We're seeing particular big changes at Peugeot, for instance. Porsche, you're quite right. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with their currently retained drivers. They simply don't have enough spaces for the talents they've got. And it's then a matter of exactly what contracts are in place and what those contracts say. Are there contracts that are specific to hypercar? My understanding is there very well may be. And that could have some impact on the decisions that are made by Porsche as to the offers that are made and whether or not those offers are actually accepted. So there's another degree of watch this space. And I think that's going to be some weeks in coming before we get to the stage where, entries have to be confirmed. There's some opportunities to see some clues on that one. We've got the sanction test coming up in the IMSA paddock in just a couple of weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, I think it is. We'll have Archie O'Connell at that test, prowling the paddock and picking up the stories for DSC and for Racer. So lots to come on that front. And I think it's the Porsche chip on the table that is the key one here.
Final bit on WC then. We mentioned briefly about Iron Links, Iron Dames, but we haven't really gone into detail about what it all means. So your understanding, Graham, is it's going to be a scaled back effort from Iron Dames to one car.
I think there's a lot, again, that could happen. So it's 2 separate programs, remember. Iron Links is the Mercedes-AMG LMG3 program in both the WC and the European Le Mans Series. Iron Dames, now a Porsche affiliated program, which has been, if we keep it into our general world, has been active this season in the European Le Mans Series and the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
One make Porsche as well.
One make Porsche, Leisure European Series previously, or karting, rally, you name it. So all of the above, with the exception of ACO Wheels Racing, put to one side. What do we expect in terms of the top line GT efforts next year? My understanding is that we should still see the Iron Dames in the FI World Endurance Championship with a Monti-entered Porsche. We know we're not going to see them in IMSA. I don't think we're going to see them in the Michelin Le Mans Cup or in the ELMS next year. This is all about basically just pulling back from some of the scope and scale of the programs and focusing on one. Okay. Pretty well known why the reasons behind that, and the same reasons behind Iron Links. It's to do with the outturn of what happened with the Lamborghini program, which was a very expensive program for the ownership group. And then beyond that, what's happened in the first year of what was an almost equally expensive program in IndyCar for Prema, which is part of the wider group. That leads to what's going on with Iron Lynx. And again, I'm keeping away from Prema. No clue what's going on there, but my understanding is pretty much their single-seater programs, which are self-funding, will carry on. Iron Lynx, as I understand it right now, are working hard to confirm a return in LMGT3 for the FI World Endurance Championship, and they're working hard to potentially, even if allowed to do so, and again, it's a pretty full grid, that there's a possibility you can even see an expanded ELMS program in LMGT3. Beyond that, of course, all these things depend on everything coming together. I'll say this much. I don't think there's any risk at all that we won't see Mercedes-AMG in LMGT3, with or without Iron Lynx in the FIWEC in 2026.
So that's WEC then. Final couple of bits to mention outside of the championships we've already mentioned before. It's a big weekend for Ferrari this weekend as we record it. It's the World Finals, all the challenge
Finale
races
Mondiale.
going. Yeah, Finale Mondiale at Mugello this year.
You've been there before. I've been there.
It's an astonishing event for not only just to watch the awesome Ferrari challenge races, but that paddock is just packed.
I've never seen so many red trousers in my life.
I've never seen so much red in my life, and for that matter, yellow. So there'll be modificators on track with Corsa Clienti, there'll be F1 Clienti, so all the Formula One cars run by clients. There'll be some heritage GT cars, I'm sure, but it's a big weekend for young up-and-coming talent within the Ferrari sphere. Those challenge races are worth a watch. They're really entertaining. They're on YouTube. They'll be free, available for everybody to
with the teams, the most experienced teams now with two full seasons of experience with the 296 Challenge, which is an awesome car.
And yeah, you look down the entry list for the World Final and some of the action there, you will spot names you recognise, and you go, "Oh, I didn't know they were doing this," or whether it's a team or a driver. But the driver that wins Finale Mondiale generally goes on to bigger and better things within Ferrari's family. So yeah, one to watch out this weekend, and we've got some really nice content to come from our man on the ground, Lawrence Butcher from PMW.
Let's talk a little bit about that content, because Lawrence, he's not like us. He's
highly intelligent for starters.
But Lawrence, technical journalist, part of our link with PMW and their expo that comes up next month for motorsport professionals. And we've taken the pin out of Lawrence and released him. And he's a ticking time bomb of questions. But specifically, there are 2 or 3 things we've asked him to look at. One of those is he's going to be sitting down and talking about the program for the 499 Modificata. That's going to be interesting, which looks very similar to the hypercar, but by regulation again has to have some very specific differences, and there's lots of them. That means that it doesn't bust open the issues about testing for the hypercar. But for me, one of the things I'm really keen to see in Lawrence's writing is it's the 20th anniversary of a program that not that many people are aware of its depth and its heritage, the FXX program. So FXX goes back to Ferrari Enzo days, and we're now in the, I think, 6th or 7th iteration of the FXX. What is FXX? It's a customer program that brings cars based around extreme Ferrari road cars to be significantly more extreme track-only cars, with then current, and I mean current, F1 tech on those cars. Really advanced tech, usually aero tech, but other than that, control systems, etc. So it's been a key part of the customer offering, and some very exclusive track day events that are run by Corsa Clienti. And we've set Lawrence to stun, and he's off to look at the progression of technology that we've seen over 2 decades in that program in some stunning cars. And when you were there, when I've been there, we're talking 30 plus of those cars on site, the biggest gatherings that you'll see in any given year of those cars.
Yeah, no, they look awesome. They sound unbelievable on the track. You're sitting there in the press room and you're like, okay, I'm going out the press room now because I've just heard something fire up. What on earth is that?
What the hell is that?
And it's and it's usually awesome. So there's Finale Mondiale this weekend. That's not the only intrigue in terms of racing that we've had, because we're going to end the show talking about the Mazda MX-5 Cup at Martinsville, and me being a bit of a lifelong stock car fan, much to Graham's annoyance, who's gone on a journey with NASCAR from being obsessed with it as a kid when I had time to getting involved in sports cars and not having the time to follow it, to now getting back on the gravy train the last few years, principally because the Garage 56 program is so awesome. It convinced me to go back and watch it.
Right. Before we
let's keep talking about stock cars.
No, let's stop.
I love stock cars.
I know you do. But before you go any further, can you put down that can of Bud Light and those ribs? Okay. And we'll talk about Martinsville. Awesome event. Watched it last night. Great to hear Shea Adam in the booth.
It's such a cool short track.
Yeah, it is indeed. Awful lot of talking about the hot dogs. I can tell you that. Good to hear from both Mazda management and IMSA management. We had briefly John Doonan in the booth for that race. I'm not going to spoil it. If you've not watched it, it's actually 100 laps of Martinsville. Not that long. Watch the race. Extraordinary finish. Extraordinary finish. And I can tell you this much. Produced the closest finish in any IMSA sanctioned race ever.
Yeah,
okay?
No, it was awesome.
We had Earl Bamber in a Hendricks Motorsport car, not that Hendricks, different Hendricks, in a car co-owned by an ex-DSC pit reporter, Russell Wittenberg. Tom Long in the other Russell Wittenberg ownership group car. Neither of those cars finished. Russell, what are you doing? And Earl eliminated in actually what was quite a nasty shunt, which was trying to get down to the low lane, brush with another car, that was then catapulted into and through the sand barrels, protecting some of the infield, which led to a fairly lengthy red flag. But take a look. What a joy for just a bit of an off-the-wall end of season event. And I think there's a lesson there for some other championships, including some established championships. It doesn't all have to be about.
Do you think if they put a Le Mans Cup race at Martinsville, it would be cleaner than the normal?
I think if they did put a Le Mans Cup race on at Martinsville, National Guard would be mobilised. It's not unusual at the moment in the States, but it doesn't take much. But yeah,
just so cool. It's one of those things. It's the second year for them doing it, MX-5 Cup at Martinsville, and it screams of an end of season get together after the champions are crowned that at some point is going to catch fire. If they stick at it, this could be one of those where it becomes somewhat of an all-star race with 50, 60 cars.
I think it could be great fun.
And watching some of it with you, Graham, Martinsville's a tiny track for a Cup Series car or a truck. For an MX-5, it's a quite a big. It's a really cool size.
Nobody needs to be told
track.
the MX-5 Cup cars race really well.
They're awesome.
The specialists in that field are awesome. It's getting quite the alumni now. The latest breakthrough star from that, Connor Zilic, and I know it's a young kid that you've been keeping an eye on while sitting on the tailgate of your pickup truck and drinking, whatever it is, iced tea.
Well, let's say Connor Zilic's done MX-5 Cup, and he's gone all the way through. He's done a lot of IMSA. Did you Asian Le Mans? Connor, was that someone else?
Connor do that? No, Nolan Siegel did.
He's done IMSA, when we saw him part of that awesome Corvette effort with Trackhouse and TF Sport this year at the Rolex 24 Hours. Absolute talent. And he's now got a full-time Cup Series drive after, well, it's not finished yet, but an awesome season in Xfinity in which he's leading the championship, I think, at the time of recording, in the playoffs. And every time anyone in the NASCAR media talk about him or he gets press, it always comes up that he did MX-5 Cup, and it's such good publicity for what is just an awesome championship and a real staple on the IMSA bill that I hope sticks around for a long while yet, because the cars are just race really, really well and they look awesome fun. We often sit in a press room, Graham, watching support races, and it's one of those where you look at it and you think, I really like. If I had money, if I won the lottery tomorrow, that's the sort of thing I'd do. I wouldn't go and buy if I had talent as well. But I wouldn't go and buy a GT3 car or something like that. I'd probably just do MX5 Cup. It just looks great fun.
It does look great fun, and there's a real sense of camaraderie. I know in that paddock I popped across there to see Russell Daytona for the support races there, and it's been it's not a new home for Shay. But it's a place that she feels at home. But a joy to see her in a new role as something of an ambassador for Mazda Motorsports. And again, the delight in it was great to hear the stories pour out yesterday in the booth. Matt Yoakum down on pit lane and Shay sharing the booth. Take a watch. It won't take you very long. Get yourself an adult beverage and watch it over the weekend.
And then watch the free NASCAR playoff races this weekend at Martinsville. Trucks tonight, Xfinity on Saturday, big Cup Series race on Sunday, and then it's the big finale ground, which I know you're really looking forward to.
Stop talking.
Next weekend.
Stop talking now. Stop talking. We haven't got time for any of that old nonsense with your stock car.
Come on, it's only 36 race weekends a year.
Oh, good grief.
Right,
this has been the stock. No, it's not. This has been the week in sports cars. I've been Graham Goodwin. He's been Stephen Kilbey. Thanks for staying later than I know we expected to here. You've got to get back to your lovely new wife, who otherwise will lock you out again. With thanks again to Justice Brothers and TorontoMotorsports.com. We'll be back with you for Weekend Sports Cars, hopefully with Marshall next week.